The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And we are here in glorious Fall River for another day in paradise.
And remember, Chip, we are number one.
That's right. We are number one. Yep. On the last show we touched a little bit on the fact that Fall River was considered the second worst city in this state to live in, and I contested that. I said I think we're number one. Well, guess what? We have been. Are we all set in there, CJ?
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay, we have been elevated to number one. That's going to be the start of our show. Fall River now has been ranked the worst city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and by the way, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is ranked 48th out of 50 states for fiscal conditions. Actually, it's a 65-page study, in-depth study that came out of George Mason University. It's a very, very comprehensive and in-depth study. It's done with a great amount of diligence, and guess what? All the Kool-Aid drinkers and the pablum eaters that have listened for the last 20 years to the fact that singing the song of how wonderful Fall River is they fiddled while the city burned, and now we have been elevated to the worst city in the third worst state, and that is economically non-viable. And why? Two of the major reasons are pension liabilities, and again, we mentioned on our show that Fall River again is not paying on time, which elevates the unfunded liability to pension system, and bonding. How long have we been going in front of the city council and talking about bonding? The continuous use of credit cards, bonding and bonding and bonding again. This is not the way to do business. We've said time and time again that apparently nobody in our city government has ever taken even a fundamental course in economics. So we have been, I guess, vindicated because we've been called negative and obstructionists and naysayers, and we are the problem with Fall River. No, we are actually the people who are looking at Fall River objectively. We still live here. We still care about this city. But the fact is, we have to call a duck a duck. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, you can call it a chicken all you want, but it's still a duck. And the fact is, that's what's wrong with Fall River. That's what's happened. And here we are again, but we made number one. I'm encouraged. It's nice to know that we are the biggest crap hole in the state.
And Chip, what I think is funny is you and I, as you said, have been speaking about this for a long time. And again, we've been called everything under the sun, and that's okay. We're used to it. But when these facts come out, again, this is probably not a credible university. It's the George Mason University. This is the Mercatus Council. They come up with these things all the time, and they do study after study on states, communities, and we look at Fall River, and we can't, we bond for a toilet seat. Let's be real, okay? We just bonded $900,000 for brown trash bins, and then Linda Pereira goes on the air and says, "Hey, if they don't want to pay the sanitation fee, they can privatize." Don't they understand? How do you meet your budgetary needs if everyone privatizes and they don't have to pay these sanitation fees?
Well, you know, it's very appropriate color, by the way, for the barrels. I have to make that aside. Very appropriate color. But you know, that's the problem. I mean, look, for you data people, and I know our mayor, clueless Sam Sutter, loves data. So you know, you'll get data overload if you read this study. This is a truly you know, data-driven and high-level study. It's 65 pages long. So you can have all the data you want, but the fundamental bottom line of all that data is it's telling us what we already knew, except it's quantifying it. And so you can say that, you know, what we were saying was theoretical, even though it's not. It's basic economics. You know, you spend more than you have, you're out of money. You know, only the government doesn't figure that out. As I said, what does Milton Friedman know? He only won the Nobel Prize in economics. And as he said, if you give the government the Sahara Desert, they'll run out of sand in 5 years. So the fact is that, look, this is what we've done. We've destroyed the housing costs in Fall River. You get nothing for a house. As a matter of fact, I just talked to a friend of mine who said, oh, they sold a house around the corner, and it's not that bad a house, $85,000. It's absurd. People are just, if the house is paid for, they'll take anything to get the hell out of this city because of what they're doing to it. You know, and it's like, okay, we go from that study to the study we talked about and on our last show where we were rated the #2 worst city in the state, and I strongly disagree with that. I think we're #1.
Well,
but
Mayor Mitchell will agree with you on that.
But
Mayor Mitchell of New Bedford will agree that he thinks that study's wrong. He says New Bedford's not #1, although he didn't say Fall River was.
well, I think we may have eked them out because when I looked at the study, this is what they rated. It wasn't as comprehensive or as in-depth and as, you know, academically driven, but it used very, very solid data, you know, federal data. And it was based on population density, which may have been a factor in us finishing 2 rather than 1. But then the other one, unemployment rate, adjusted median income, which we know we're lower than New Bedford. The only city that's lower than us in median income is Lawrence. And education, which, okay, let's not go there. We need about 5 shows to go there in Fall River. And high crime, which, you know, we know we're in the top 50. And the low cost of homes. And I'm sure the houses in Fall River are not worth as much as the houses in New Bedford. So, you know, these studies are based on some pretty important data. Because, you know, as we said on the last show, with the lunatics that we have running this government that continue to try to use these ridiculously, you know, inappropriate fixes like tourism. We're going to fix Fall River with tourism. Yes, we're going to bring them in by the flock. And as we said, when these people from Illinois and the Midwest or from down south driving through on their way to Newport or Cape Cod, which are, by the way, true tourist destinations, they're going to Google Fall River. They're going to go, oh, wow, they got the cheapest houses in the state. They got some of the highest crime in the state. They've got the worst educational system. So let's visit, or better yet, let's move to Fall River, right? So, look, it's time for everybody to get their head out of either the sand or their derriere and look at Fall River realistically. The only way we can fix the problems in this community is acknowledge the problems. You can't, you know, you can't deal, if you're an alcoholic and you refuse to admit you're an alcoholic, you're never gonna be able to fix it. So the first thing is recognizing the problem, and that's one of the fundamental problems we've had in government. You know, we've been around for a while, and I mean, I want you to show me a meeting, just one, that a city councilor got up and said, you know, this city is a mess. No, it's always, Oh, all these people condemn Fall River. They laugh at us. I can't believe this. Oh, they're negative. No, they're realistic. Look, it's not that, look, you're wrong and the rest of the world is right. It's not the other way around. When the entire nation can just look at the stats, totally devoid of any interest. They don't have any dog in this fight. George Mason University did not have a dog in the fight when they were doing this data. These were purely data-driven studies. And in every data-driven study, we are in the basement. We're only number one if you look at it upside down. And the fact is that since everybody else in this country that is looking at Fall River objectively, they're not from New Bedford and they hate Durfee. They're not from a surrounding community and trying to condemn Fall River to make their community look better. What if somebody in Fairfax, Virginia, and George Mason University care about Fall River? They probably couldn't find it on the map. The fact is, these are totally objective studies, and they fundamentally all come to the same conclusion. This city is in dire financial straits. This city is a mess. And no wonder Lou Pacheco doesn't want to move here. Seems...
Well, you know, Chip, this is the funny thing about all of this. All right, we do our research here at Spindle City Straight Talk. We make sure we get the data. And the funny thing is we don't have to search too far. And you know why? Because we're a credible news source. The agencies that do these reports send them to us. The AP picks up our news stories, okay? The local news media turns to us for information. The national news media, they turn to us. I'll show you the call logs, I'll show you the emails. But the great part about it is that no matter how much we talk about it, and you and I both know, Chip, we've been accosted at more restaurants than we know about. People come up and say, oh, you're right, your show is great, this is wonderful. But it's wonderful because we're telling you the truth. And when you get into some of the other issues going on right now, let's look at the annual tax holiday in Massachusetts. And you know, this is kind of like my shift. Mike Rodrigues has said he will not support a tax holiday on the weekend of the 15th. Okay, that also happens to be Battleship Cove 50th anniversary weekend, because the state can't afford it. And that is feel-good legislation. And several state legislators, including Representative Alan Sylvia, said they don't support it. The city's got a $1.8 billion budgetary shortfall. That's what the Commonwealth has. And we're going to give away 26-point-some-odd million in tax revenue. It sounds logical. It really does. But then again, Chip, I'm going to quote you, there isn't a dime that they can't spend when it comes available. And this is what happens. So your state legislator, yours, not mine, yours, okay, has said you don't deserve a 6.5% break on your purchases on the 15th and 16th of August, which is the period of time when most people are buying for school. And that, you know, that kind of scares me that we have that type of attitude.
Yeah, and not only that, it just goes to show how fundamentally I don't know whether once you go to the legislature that they remove part of your brain and you become a mental defective, because, you know, they can't look at the forest and see the forest. They have to look at the tree. Yeah, of course they're out of money. If you read the new study that we just talked about, okay, if you look at the McCanter study, Massachusetts is ranked 48th out of the 50 states. We are the third worst state in the United States for debt and fiscal irresponsibility. And you know why? Because of those morons.
And
because they're in Boston and they're saying, oh, this is feel-good legislation. No, it's not, you imbeciles. It is legislation that allows people to go and shop and support businesses.
Right.
And those businesses are the foundation of the economy of this state. The problem with you is you're out of money and you can't afford to give this holiday because you need the tax money because you can't stop spending. You cannot stop spending other people's money. That is the fundamental problem with this government. They never saw a tax or a fee that they couldn't spend. And the more money you give them, the more money they spend. It's like a giant vacuum cleaner. The fact is, as I said, government is a necessary evil. It is not something that's good. We should have the smallest possible government. We should have the leanest possible government. And what do we have in Massachusetts? One of the most bloated, inflated government. If they shook the MBTA, the Lottery Commission, there would be more political cousins and cronies falling out of that tree. You know, it would look like it was a hailstorm. There would be so many people falling out. And check these people. Check the councilors. Find out where their cousins are working, and check the state reps. And Mike Rodrigues is opposed? Of course he's opposed. All he's going to do is go to New Hampshire like he did before to buy his liquor with his no tax. He doesn't care. He's opposed to it. He's philosophically opposed. Why? Because they all want the money, because they can't stop spending. That's why the people need to revolt. You know, I mean, everybody went crazy over an increase for tea. I mean, they are raping and pillaging every single day in this state. They're coming down and they're just killing the taxpayer. It's never going to go away until they go away.
And the problem, Chip, is this, and you know, we speak about Section 1, Article 5 all the time. Our elected officials, and right now it's become obvious that Sam doesn't think, you know, Captain Clueless does not think that he's responsible or answerable to us. The city council has never thought they were answerable to us. The state representatives, for some reason, don't feel they're answerable to us. The state senator, you know, that's a seat you get and you never lose. You know, we had Joan Menard, who has made sure she's keep patting that pension, baby. And, you know, it just keeps going on and on. And why does that happen? Because when the voters of Massachusetts voted for term limits, okay, the Democratic Party went to the League of Women Voters to file a lawsuit in opposition of the adoption of that question, which was a binding question, to restrict terms to a limit. And the Supreme Judicial Court of the Commonwealth, appointed by the governor, who derives their power from us, the people, said, your people don't know what you're talking about. You can't do it. You got to elect people that are going to make that change. I mean, are you serious? Are you that obtuse that you can't see that the people are saying they want this? So no matter what you say, because Massachusetts is a state that you can petition for change, doesn't matter, because if the legislature doesn't like it, they don't do it. Remember, we voted to repeal the increase in the state income tax to 5%. And they said, no, we're not doing it. You don't know anything about money. The mayor says, no, you don't know anything about money. The city council says, no, you don't know anything about money.
You're right. And one of the fundamental problems is that the people, you know, as I said, look, you know, I think they're a pack of self-serving, you know, bureaucrats at best case scenario. And I have a few other words that the FCC would take us off the air if I said what they really are. But the fact is that, look, the problem is the people. They you know, there's an issue here about everybody wants change, but nobody wants to be the change. They want somebody else to be the change. You know, we did it with the recall, but that's the beginning. You have to continue that. There has to be a recall in every single election. It is a referendum on their performance as your representatives. I feel like I'm giving a civics lesson here, but it's true. You know what happens in this country, not only in Fall River, but throughout the state, throughout the country. Everybody tells everybody else, you get rid of your congressman, you get rid of your rep, but I'm going to keep mine, because if I want to call him and have him get me a light pole, or I got a problem on a state level, I want to be able to call his office and have him intercede for me on my personal business. And that's the problem. The politicians has figured out that they don't have to represent you as people as long as they provide you with some constituent service. But I hate to tell you this. I mean, as much as everybody, as Napoleon Bonaparte once said, the two levers that move men are fear and self-interest. And the voters operate on self-interest. So they will vote and continue to vote these people in, like Mike Roderick, who led the state, or was at the top of the state in getting money for travel expenses, and he's always at the top. He's got his head deeply embedded in the trough, yet he was, right after they passed legislation to elevate the liquor tax, he was found buying liquor in New Hampshire. He doesn't want to give you a sales tax break. He just wants the money. So is he truly representing the people? No. But everybody wants to say, I can call Mike up, and if I got a problem in Boston, he'll make a phone call and it might get fixed. But that's not what it's there for. Their primary job is to be representatives of the people, for the good of the people, and listen to the will of the people. You've allowed them to say, look, I can ignore the will of the people in direct violation of the United States and Massachusetts Constitution, because he'll do me a favor. Well, you know something? I hate to tell you this, but that's cutting off your nose to spite your face. Because all the favors in the world are not going to help you when you lose your house in a couple of years in Fall River, because these idiots continue to take money away. It's not going to help you when the three sort of turncoats that voted this budget in continue to raise your taxes and you lose your house. Because you know something? Then you won't have to call a state rep or a city councilor for a light in front of your house, because you're not going to have a house. You're not going to have a pension. You're not going to have health care, because that's what happens. What happens is, when they run out of tax money, they start dipping into the rest of your life. They're going to cut pensions. They've already done it in Fall River. City employees are now taking an average of a $3 million hit out of their pocket every single year in health care, in escalated costs. So they've already started. $3 million a year out of the city employee, and some of those people have been retired for 20 years and are on incomes of $12,000 and $13,000 or $14,000 a year before taxes.
And remember, Chip, very clearly, they don't want a pay cut. They need to get more money. You got to take the pay cut. You, the retiree. You, the school teacher for 30 years. You, the fireman who almost gave your life how many times? You, the police officer who was abused, shot at, treated like crap. You, as the retiree, have to take the hit. But Kathy Ann says we need to give people more money. We need to give them more stipends. Lou Pacheco says, I'm not giving up a dime. And Sam Sutter said he already took his pay cut when he became mayor. I don't know where that pay cut came from, because you chose to leave your old job. Nobody said, hey, you're going to stay as the district attorney, but we're going to cut your pay by $35,000.
Yeah, well, if the CEO of Caremark, who makes $32.8 million, leaves Caremark and he goes to McDonald's and he's getting, $8 an hour, he can say he took a pay cut, but it's not a pay cut, it's a different job. And the salary is what the job pays. So if he took that job, of his own volition, or even because he had to, because somebody finally figured that $32.8 million is way too much for any human being to be paid for anything, especially when you're balancing, you're getting that money by overcharging people for medications. So, this is the fact. we've already said on this show, and I will be going before the council next month to tell them that I am filing a complaint as a retirement board member about them not paying on time. So already they're increasing the pension liability, which the Mercatus study says is one of the fundamental factors of our financial problems with the bonding. So let's look at this. The two major issues and the two major precipitators of financial catastrophe are unfunded pension liabilities and bonding. And what has Fall River done in the last 2 weeks? They're bonding for barrels, and they're saying they're going to pay the pension system late, which will drive up the unfunded liability. So kudos, you pack of useless. I don't even. I'm gonna say. I might. I can't finish that sentence.
Well, Chip, and then you look at what's supposed to happen. This week we're supposed to have an ordinance committee meeting, which was supposed to address the bags. Okay, and the chairman of that committee, Jaisla Correa, or several members of the committee, or whatever the case may be, because nobody provided a reason, canceled the meeting. I mean, is the heat starting to get turned up? Is the pot already boiling and they can't handle it anymore? I mean, this is what happens. This is what happens. You, the voter, you, the citizen, do not hold your elected officials to the fire. You do not hold them responsible for anything that they do. Instead, you make excuses for them. You let them get away with it because, well, Linda did this for me and she's such a nice lady, and, Leo does this and he makes a great chow mein sandwich, and Jaisel's so cute and young, and Pat Casey's wonderful. You should see how she treats my dog. I don't care if Pat Casey gives your dog claws, manicures or whatever they want to call them. All right? I don't care if Linda Pereira got the hole in front of your house paved. All right? What about the fact that she's spending all your money for foolishness? And you just got to look at the bonding and the money they want to spend on the new computer system with Windows 7 and 8 training. I just got my email last night saying
So did I. Windows 10.
that Windows 10 is going to be available to me in less than a week. Hey, guess what? Hello, Fall River City Council, over here, technology, it's moving ahead. So you're going to buy old systems, old operating systems, old computer system that's already obsolete when the new stuff is here today. And you don't even send it out to bid. And don't give me the crap that he's a community provider and he's buying off the bid list, because that's crap.
Well, it's up to the voter to pay attention. As the quote when I quoted Goebbels about lies, he also said that the greatest enemy of a government is the truth and an educated public. This is why every time there's been a rise in fascism or any repressive form of government, the first thing they do is get rid of the books and the educators, because people who pay attention and understand are very, very dangerous. And we allow our legislators to ignore their obligations under the Constitution to represent us. And it's ironic, because that's one of the most important jobs anyone could ever hold, and we allow them not to do it because of our own lack of forethought, because we're so worried about what they can do for us. I'm going to give you a nice simple analogy. If you went to a mechanic who never fixed your car, and every time you got in that car it stalled, it wouldn't run, would you keep that mechanic for 20 years? Would you keep going back to that mechanic and paying him to work on your car if he never fixed it? If it broke down every half an hour? No. So let's do the same thing with government. That's a hell of a lot more important, because you can take a bus.
Well, that's it for our show. We'll see you Friday with Carlos and Chip, and we're going to have a great day. We're going to bring you more news. Thanks for watching. You have a great day now.